Hey everyone, it's Mariana, and it is finally September. For those of you who don't know, autumn is my favorite time of year. And even though it's technically still summer until September 23rd, we all know that Halloween season and pumpkin spice everything starts pretty much as soon as September arrives. So, before we get into all of the spooky and atmospheric fall reading, let me tell you about the best books that I read this summer. This top 5 was actually kind of difficult to make because I had surprisingly good luck picking books this summer, and I enjoyed almost everything I read, which is slightly unusual, but I have settled on a top 5 plus 2 honorable mentions, which is what I'm going to start with. Both of my honorable mentions are nonfiction books that I found thoroughly fascinating, but they could not be more different. The first one is Midnight in Chernobyl by Adam Higginbotham, and as you can imagine, this has to do with the Chernobyl disaster. And the second is Chainsaw Confidential by Gunnar Hansen, and this, of course, is about the making of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. What I loved about both of these books is that they offer a very comprehensive behind-the-scenes look at their respective subjects. With Midnight in Chernobyl, you get a bit of everything: the political environment, a personal look at some of the people who were involved, the backstory, the fallout, and a reasonable amount of science. This is the perfect starting point for people who are looking to familiarize themselves with the Chernobyl disaster, and it is written in a very accessible way. Chainsaw Confidential is obviously a must-read for any fan of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, particularly because it's written by the actor who played Leatherface in the film. But also, this is a fascinating behind-the-scenes story for anyone interested in film in general. After reading this, it's not just astounding that the movie became the horror classic it is today, but that it just even got made in the first place. Moving on to my top 5, I am going to start with a sci-fi horror classic, The Body Snatchers by Jack Finney. I am actually very surprised I don't hear people talking about this one more often, or at all, if I'm being honest, because this is a gem of its genre, and it also has aged really well. The Body Snatchers tells a story of a small California town where one summer night, aliens start taking over the bodies and minds of its residents. It is very creepy and suspenseful. The pacing is perfect, and I really liked the characters. It's mostly told through the eyes of a doctor, but I particularly appreciated his love interest, Becky. She's a lot of fun. She was definitely my favorite character. I would highly recommend this to fans of quality, thought-provoking science fiction, especially if you like your sci-fi with a bit of that horror flavor. And if you have read The Body Snatchers already, please recommend more books with a similar feel to me because I need more of that in my life. At number 4, I have something that I initially didn't even expect to be putting on a favorites list, but I am going with The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt. You may remember me talking about this novel in my first book blend video. A new one is coming very soon, which means you may also remember the issues that I had with it, but I have to say, the book has really stuck with me, and as the time goes by, I am realizing more and more how well the novel is sitting with me, and I can easily see myself rereading it in a few years. The Goldfinch is a thought-provoking and melancholic coming-of-age tale about Theo, a guy who, as a child, survives an explosion at a museum that kills his mother, and who goes on to have quite an interesting life. It is long, and it is gorgeously written. I don't have a physical copy to show you because I listened to an audiobook on Audible, but I did order my own copy finally the other day because I wanted to add it to my collection. I also cannot wait to see the movie that is coming out in a couple of weeks, and I am going to do something I don't do often at all, and I'm going to change my rating. I initially rated it 4 out of 5 stars, but I just need to bump it up to 4.5 out of 5. Normally, if I'm changing ratings, I am going to bring the rating down, but this is one of those rare cases where I'm bringing it up. this book is doing weird things to me. At number 3, I have the third book of the Winternight trilogy by Catherine Arden, The Winter of the Witch. I devoured this trilogy this summer. I thoroughly enjoyed all 3 novels, and the third one ended up being my favorite. I did not expect to love this book as much as I did. This being the final book in the trilogy means I can't really tell you about the premise without spoiling the previous 2, but in general, this is a medieval Russia-inspired fantasy trilogy. It's a coming-of-age type of story. It is filled with Slavic folklore, and it is awesome. Let me know if you guys want to see a spoiler-free review of the entire trilogy. Endings are difficult, and finishing up a book series in a satisfying way is so important, which is why I am so happy that Catherine Arden sticks the landing with The Winter of the Witch. She ties up loose ends, she brings the themes that she has been working on throughout the whole thing to a conclusion, and I particularly loved how she weaved in an important historical event as the culmination of the entire trilogy. If you're looking for a fun and occasionally dark folklore-inspired fantasy series that will maintain its storytelling quality throughout the whole thing, you should really give the Winternight trilogy a chance. I don't think you're going to be disappointed, and it is absolutely worth your time. At number 2, I have another unexpected, for me, favorite, and that is The Dead Zone by Stephen King. This is a novel of his that was not at the top of my TBR. I actually wasn't sure if I wanted to read this at all, but I picked it up kind of randomly on a whim, and I ended up absolutely loving it. I actually loved it so much that I would put it in my top 5 Stephen King novels. Maybe even top 3. I'm still debating about that one, but definitely top 5. The Dead Zone, if you don't know, tells the story of John Smith, who gains certain precognition abilities after an accident. Eventually, he faces the choice of stopping something horrible. This is a novel I just couldn't put down. I could say this about all of the books I'm talking about today, of course, but with this one in particular, I was a little bit worried I was going to get stuck because of the length, but I ended up burning through it. Not only is this a mix of supernatural and psychological thriller, which is something I already find exciting, but this novel actually really surprised me with its character development. John Smith is easily one of Stephen King's best characters, at least from what I've read. And when you finally get to the villain and the dilemma of the whole thing, well, that was a lot of fun. And lastly, at number 1, my favorite book of the summer and my current favorite of the entire year is A Roadside Picnic by the Strugatsky brothers, which actually broke me for a few days. And obviously my book is in Russian because I'm able to read it in the original language, but this has been translated into English and many other languages, and it is very easy to find, so don't let my Russian cover scare you. This sci-fi classic from the 70s shows us a bleak world after aliens have come and gone, leaving behind so-called zones that aren't exactly normal anymore. The main character, Red, makes a living by getting mysterious alien artifacts out of the zone, but everything comes at a price. When I started reading this book, I immediately appreciated the grittiness and the unusual approach to the whole alien contact thing, which I now realize a lot of later sci-fi has borrowed from. However, I wasn't sure if this was going to be my, if you know what I mean, kind of book, that I was going to be personally connected to it. I was wrong. The book is in 4 parts, and as I was reading it, even though I wasn't really in love with the characters, bits of dialogue and ideas would come up, and they would be really striking, and they would really emphasize the allegorical nature of this book, which is something I really love. So, as I mentioned, I was really appreciating it, but it would occasionally just get me with small things. But then I read part 4 and I was just left speechless. I wish I could talk to you guys about this, but I don't want to spoil it, and I really do think you guys should check this book out. It's worth reading 100% immediately. One of my favorite books of all time. Can't wait to read it again. But yeah, I finished part 4. I just kind of sat there shell-shocked. And then I reread part 4 again in a few hours. And then the next day, I decided to listen to some analysis videos because I needed to kind of process this book with other people. And then the day after, I reread part 4 again. And this whole time, I just could not bring myself to start another book. So yeah, this was quite an experience for me, and it had quite an impact. Ended up being my kind of book. If throughout the rest of the year I read something that beats this as far as emotional and intellectual impact goes, I think 2019 is going to officially be the best year of my reading life, because this was something else. I am still not fully over this book, and I don't think I'm going to be over it for a while, and I'm probably going to reread it very, very soon. Maybe even this year. Yeah. And that's it for my top 5. As you can tell, I have read some very exciting and great books, and I hope you did as well. So please let me know what was the best or the top 3 best books that you've read this summer in the comments below. I would love to know. Also, yes, I will be making a top 5 movies I watched this summer video as well, and that is actually coming up next on my channel. So look forward to that. As always, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up, share it, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I hope you're having an awesome day. I will see you very soon in my next one. Bye!